the people in key decision-making positions are concerned that this is going to take away their power base. Now, I think that I would love to see the Caribbean societies become genuinely more open, more receptive to upward mobility, but that would threaten our political systems, as they currently are, which are based on the ability to control scarce resources and deliver patronage and provide opportunities for corruption. So I think that if we genuinely transform our economies, some of the old guard in politics would find this quite upsetting. And that is why I think we're not seeing the kind of progress that we desperately need. But we are throwing away so many lives and so much potential as a result of our failing to grasp our problems and how readily they could be fixed if we just had the will to do it.
Thank you very much. Before I move on to our discussants, I'm going to take a round of questions from the floor. And I really do ask that they either be questions or key tangible recommendations. Remember, this is the day that we move from context and analysis to the identification of tangible actions that will take us forward out of these really interesting 3 days that we've had.
Hi, good day. This is a question for Anthony. What about the role of the creative sector? Sorry, my name is Karen Niles, Economic Development Board. What are those other industries that cannot be automated or really technologized, so to speak? So particularly the creative sector, what are your views on that for the future?
Thank you, Karen. I don't really like this idea that we have a creative sector. I think creativity is actually a generic ability, and it's just as possible to be creative in manufacturing, creative in thinking up new and better systems of governance and so forth. I don't think creative pertains solely to software and the arts. What I think we should be doing is looking to encourage problem-solving skills in schools and universities. After that, I think you would see the impact of creativity right across the economies.
Thank you. The gentleman in front of the mic. And I see a hand over on the table behind table 15.
My question is to the IDB rep. One of the challenges that we've had over the years is getting civil society to play a role in some of the decision making that is made by governments. I know the IDB has started an initiative called the CONSOC, and I would like to find out from you, what are your views on that in terms of its replicability with other donor agencies? How can other agencies incorporate civil society within the decision-making framework?
Thank you. I'm going to take several more off the floor and then hand off to the panel. Apologies in front of the mic, but I'm going to try and alternate if I can, because there are hands on the floor. Is there a runner near the hand that I saw over on the left-hand side?
What we can do is ask everyone to just use the one mic here, so we make it easy for you to manage, please.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to raise a question. I'm Christine Norton. I'm coming out of 30 plus years in the UN. And one of the things I find that I've learned over time is that as you have middle income countries, the UN and other implementers or agencies working in the area of development have a tendency to look at social policy work much more than service delivery. Yet still there are many gaps in middle income countries like in the Caribbean, and service delivery does work. Basically, if you get there and you just do it, you will close the gap. The issue is who should do it maybe now as we move forward. And in communities in the Caribbean, all over the Caribbean, you see self-starters. And of course, funding people at a community level has implications, but the issues of trust, monitoring, and capacity building may need to come into play. But I think that we really do need to revisit the issue of social policy work versus service delivery. There's one second point that I wanted to make, and that's on shared value. Yeah, on shared value and the role of the private sector. I think that we haven't heard much about that in the Caribbean, and how can we then encourage this question of shared value, that the private sector works not just for economic growth, but also for social progress. There's a benefit in it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take two more, and then I'm going to move back to the panel and on to the discussants, and then I'll open the floor again. Sir?
Okay. My name is Dance Okemele, representing the Suriname Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for your contribution. I want to correct something. All three days I hear the English-speaking Caribbean, and a little bit French. I want to reiterate that Suriname is also part of the Caribbean, and we have a lot to offer to the region. We can offer you food. We have the best water, one of the best water in the world. We have energy, a lot of agriculture products to offer to the region. Also dogs we have to offer to the region. But my question is the region open to receive what Suriname have to offer? Can we make the shift also when we are in conference, etc., that we give honor to all our brothers and sisters in the region? Suriname is also part, and I invite all of you here to visit Suriname and to see what we have to offer. We have it for you, but are you open to receive what we have? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take one last comment from the floor for now.
Professor Clayton, I'm compelled to respond. I've always admired your work, and the logic is impeccable. I would sound a warning, though, that the world is not linear, and that you must be mindful of reversals. I'm saying that the world is not linear, and the future, according to Clayton, is not the only future.
Sure. Yep.
And so one must be very careful. There are things we thought about the world in the 60s that are now nowhere near what we expect. The personal computer was supposed to have dominated at a certain time. It didn't happen until very recently. So this is just a warning that we must place bets very carefully on the future, because the costs are enormous. Second point I want to make is that it's a point I made yesterday, but I didn't think it was fully understood. There are no armies of persons in government and elsewhere lining up to replace those that are here. These are the people we have to work with, and we have to accept that. So what we need to do is to look for opportunities and evidence where these new developments are and scale them up, and open the space for more voices at the table. More transparency, more accountability, but more voices. The political space consumes everything else. When a bridge falls down, we don't talk to the chief hydraulics officer, we talk to the political representative. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take this one last lady who's patiently standing and then move on. The lady in... Okay. And then you will be on the next round, ma'am.
Hi, Vicky Azavero. The thing that I want to say is that the ownership that we talk about comes from that shared vision. And we can't go anywhere in this forum on the future of the Caribbean if we do not have a definition of the Caribbean that we're all accepting. And everything that we have heard over these past several days has been differing definitions of the Caribbean. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is that at Rio Plus 20, we talked about changing patterns of consumption and production. That was very central to what we were trying to do and accomplish. When Professor Clayton talks about people disappearing and so on, and technology becoming obsolete, I have to point out a very important thing, that the petrochemical industry, their technology never seems to become obsolete, despite the fact that you have wind, solar, tidal power, all of these different kinds of energy that could come into being but don't come into being. So I really do have a question about why their technology doesn't come obsolete and everybody else does. And then the quality of life that is a result.
Thank you very much for a very interesting first round of comments. Before I move to, I'm going to ask the discussants to start first, also responding to some of what you've heard from the floor. I would say, kind of in a policy recommendation out of this meeting, starting with the last comment, was perhaps, if the room were in agreement, a more inclusive view of what the Caribbean is. This is a point that came up on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and again today. So rather than spending time in the definitional moment of what is the Caribbean and the fear that we're going to lose part of ourselves, I am a firm proponent of the view that inclusiveness brings more opportunity than not. But I'll wait to hear validation from the floor, but if I can turn to you first, Dr. Brand.
Thank you, moderator, and good morning, good afternoon, actually, to my Caribbean brothers and sisters. I am quite happy to be here to speak to questions of governance and security. I want to ask a simple question to begin. Why governance? I believe that governance must be about a collaborative approach to ensure hope in the midst of uncertainty. I think we need to move beyond the narrow definitions of good governance. In fact, good governance has been used by many political leaders to undermine security in the Caribbean, and I could speak about that some more. But I think we need to take back our communities, even as we start to think about what the future must look like. And governance must be about people coming up with concrete ideas to govern their future. I want to send out a proposal to the Commonwealth Secretariat. You had a very good presentation yesterday in your Vision in 2050 project. And my colleague, Professor Dr. Winston Moore, gave us some good modeling. We looked at different scenarios. What can the Caribbean look like? I want to propose that the Commonwealth Secretariat produce a video, a documentary on different scenarios. What can the Caribbean look like? And then what do we do with this documentary? We upload it on YouTube. We use it as a teaching tool in every school. We use it in town hall meetings as we try to engage people where they are through community governance. And when we see what the Caribbean can look like, then it is a starting place for a conversation about what we must do now. So I want to propose as a tangible outcome from this forum that the Commonwealth economic modeling be translated to a visual documentary where we can capture different scenarios about the Caribbean. But I want to touch on community